taking a look at the day's headlines. Balanced growth for the sake of the entire nation. South Korea's Prime Minister is looking into whether certain large-scale economic projects in areas outside Seoul can be exempt from government-led preliminary economic assessments. South Korea mourns as 2 Korean victims of the Japanese military's wartime sexual slavery pass away on the same day. It means just over 20 victims are still alive, awaiting a long overdue genuine apology from Tokyo. Plus, further trade tensions between China and the US as grand juries in New York and Seattle indict Chinese telecom company Huawei and some of its affiliates with more than 20 crimes. Our top story this morning at the weekly cabinet meeting on this Tuesday, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon and government ministers, they're going to deliberate over which large-scale economic projects will be exempt from the government's preliminary economic assessment. Now, the government has to review the economic validity of projects that receive over $26 million in government funding. But 17 cities and provinces outside of Seoul have requested a government exemption to projects such as building railways, highways, airports and hospitals. The government is considering giving exemptions in some cases in order to promote balanced regional development, as some regions didn't receive benefits from development projects in the past due to their low population. However, there's some criticism that the exemptions could cause projects to be a drain on taxpayers' funds. Now to a concerning development. South Korea has confirmed a foot and mouth disease outbreak at a cow farm located south of Seoul. The confirmation comes after the farm's owner suspected around 20 cows were displaying symptoms of the highly contagious disease. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With the Lunar New Year holiday just around the corner, the year's first outbreak of foot and mouth disease was confirmed on Monday at a milk cow farm in Ansung, located some 75 kilometers south of Seoul. Quarantine officials in Gyeonggi-do province said the farm's owner reported a suspected outbreak early Monday morning after about 20 out of the 120 cows at the farm showed symptoms of the disease. Officials say all cattle at the affected farm will be destroyed to prevent the further spread of FMD, which affects cloven-hoofed animals, including pigs, goats, and deer. An additional 500 animals at 8 farms located less than 500 meters from the affected farm may also be culled. A 24-hour lockdown has also been placed on all farm animals within 3 kilometers of the affected farm. The lockdown applies to 82 farms and affects about 4,300 animals in total. The latest confirmed case of foot and mouth disease is the first in South Korea since April 2018. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, Monday was a sad day for a great many Koreans as 2 Korean victims of the Japanese military's wartime sexual slavery passed away on the same day. One of them, in particular, was an extremely active activist who directed a lot of international light on Tokyo's past atrocities against the tens of thousands of women and girls affected by it. Lee Jiyoung with more.
Kim Bok-dong, a 93-year-old victim of Japan's sexual enslavement during World War II, passed away late Monday night. At the age of 14, Kim was taken to, quote, work in a factory according to Japanese soldiers. But instead, she was forced to serve as a sex slave for Japanese soldiers in China, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, and other places. It was only after 8 years that she could return to her homeland. And in 1992, Kim started sharing her painful stories and worked as a female human rights activist. In 1993, Kim became the first victim of Japan's sexual enslavement to stand at the World Conference on Human Rights to share her testimony. She continued her brave and bold protest against Japan's war crimes by meeting people in international groups, participating in protests, and creating funds to help girls who have been sexually abused in wars just as she was. And after all these years, she's still waiting for a sincere apology from Japan. Her protest against Japan will continue even after her death, as after her funeral on Friday, her coffin will be carried around Seoul, including along the streets in front of the Japanese embassy. This comes after another 93-year-old woman, known to the media only by her surname Lee, died Monday morning after suffering from poor health. Lee was kidnapped on her way home from work in 1942 at the age of 17. There are now only 23 South Korean victims still alive, but their wishes for legal compensation and sincere apology from Japan are yet to come. Jiyoung, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has expressed a willingness to normalize relations with North Korea. However, in what seemed to be a deliberate move by the Japanese leader, Abe decided against making similar remarks about improving ties with Seoul. Park Ji-won reports.
In his annual policy speech to the Japanese Diet on Monday, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he would be willing to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jongun. He said Pyongyang and Tokyo need to, quote, break the shell of mutual distrust to resolve the issue of the regime's nuclear program and the abductions of Japanese citizens by North Korean agents back in the 1970s and 80s. Abe, however, omitted the mentioning of Japan's bilateral relationship with South Korea. Until last year's annual policy speech, Abe emphasized the cooperative partnership with Seoul. Experts think the unprecedented omission of such paragraph regarding ties with South Korea seems to reflect Abe's strategic decision to use the current sour relationship with Seoul for its domestic political interests. The Japanese Prime Minister stressed a strengthened alliance with the U.S., a new phase in bilateral ties with China, and steps towards a peace treaty with Russia. Meanwhile, Abe also mentioned the issue of amending Japan's pacifist constitution at the very end of his speech, saying he hopes more discussions to be held at the Diet. Monday's annual policy speech was Abe's 7th policy speech since 2012. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, Seoul's top diplomat held talks on Monday with U.S. Ambassador to South Korea, Harry Harris, covering a range of issues, including North Korea's denuclearization. Harris is thought to have delivered New Year's greetings to Kang Kyung-hwa. Seoul's foreign ministry says they also talked about how the allies are going to share defense costs. Harris also met Defense Minister Jung Kyung-do, although the details of that session were not disclosed. Some speculate they may have discussed the recent radar dispute between South Korea and Japan. The U.S. Justice Department has filed several federal charges against Chinese telecoms giant Huawei. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our No Aram. So Aram, another move that could escalate already fragile trade relations.
That's right, Mar. Monday's move could potentially complicate efforts by Washington and Beijing to negotiate an end to their trade war. It could also complicate matters between China and Canada, as the Justice Department has also charged Huawei's chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, who was arrested in Canada last month on a U.S. request. Huawei was charged with accusations of bank and wire fraud, as well as trying to steal trade secrets from rival T-Mobile and giving incentives to employees to carry out such illicit activities. Others include working to skirt U.S. sanctions on Iran. Washington claims Huawei misled the U.S. and a global bank about its relationship with an Iranian affiliate.
By claiming that Skycom was a separate company and not an affiliate of Huawei, which it actually controlled, Huawei allegedly asserted that all of its Iranian business was in compliance with the American sanctions. These alleged false claims led banks to do business with the company and therefore to unknowingly violate our laws.
Now, both Huawei and Ms. Meng deny the allegations. Washington's crackdown on Huawei began about 10 years ago amid concerns the Chinese government could use the firm's technology for spying. Huawei has insisted it is not under government control. Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross insisted Monday's indictment was separate from ongoing trade talks with Beijing, the next round of which is due this week in Washington. Now, the United States has imposed sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil company, PDVSA. The move is aimed at taking control of the country's oil wealth away from embattled President Nicolas Maduro.
Today's designation of PDVSA will help prevent further diversion of Venezuela's assets by Maduro and will preserve these assets for the people of Venezuela where they belong.
The sanctions come less than a week after President Trump declared Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido as the country's legitimate leader. National Security Advisor John Bolton, meanwhile, warned Maduro's government would face what he called a significant response if any harm came to U.S. diplomatic staff, Guaido or Venezuela's National Assembly. Bolton refused, however, to specify if that meant military action. At least 60 people are now dead and nearly 300 others are still missing after Friday's dam collapse in southeastern Brazil. Most of those missing are workers of the Vale mining company. The dam collapse is the second major disaster linked to the Brazilian mining giant in about 3 years. Rescuers continue to pull bodies out of the mud and rubble with hopes of finding any more survivors fading.
Thank you as always, Suano Aram, for the world news there. Now back here in Korea, and the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, otherwise known as the KCTU, has failed to rejoin South Korea's presidential Tripartite Commission, which discusses deals between the government, management and Labour, while the Confederation hosted a General Assembly of Representatives on Monday, where some 1,000 members engaged in an intense debate. They rejected all three motions to rejoin the social dialogue body. The KCTU withdrew from the Tripartite Commission in 1999 to protest against the government's introduction of the dispatch worker system and arbitrary dismissals of workers. Now, it doesn't seem to have the same glitz and glamour as its Las Vegas counterpart, but South Korea's version of the global consumer electronics show kicks off on this Tuesday, showcasing the core products and technology of Korean firms. The Korea Electronics Association says some 40 Korean firms will exhibit their products under 5 themes, namely AR and VR, sports and entertainment, healthcare, smart home and robots at the 3-day event held in Seoul's Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Major products to be on display include extendable next-generation micro-LED TVs and portable neuroimaging devices. The U.S. Heritage Foundation has assessed South Korea as the 29th freest economy in the world. That is actually down 2 notches from 2018. South Korea ranked 7th among countries in the Asia-Pacific region as well. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
South Korea ranked 29th out of 180 countries in terms of economic freedom, down 2 spots from last year. According to the Index of Economic Freedom released Monday by the Heritage Foundation, South Korea scored 72.3 points, 1.5 points lower than 2018, with declining scores for judicial effectiveness, tax burden, and labor freedom. The foundation evaluates countries in a total of 12 areas in 4 categories: rule of law, regulatory efficiency, government size, and open markets. It also explained that South Korea ranks 7th out of 43 countries in the Asian Pacific region, outpacing the regional average of 60.6 and global average of 60.8. Although South Korea has become a developed country thanks to decades of rapid economic development, the Heritage Foundation also said the country now faces challenges, including an aging society and its high dependence on an export-oriented economic model. This year, Hong Kong was top of the list, followed by Singapore, New Zealand, and Switzerland. North Korea ranked rock bottom at 180th place for the 25th consecutive year since 1995, when the list was first compiled. The foundation said the despotic military regime is the world's most centralized and closed market. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea and the Financial Supervisory Service have conducted a poll to find out the country's financial literacy. It shows that South Koreans rank lower than the OECD average. Kim Hae-sung reports.
The results of a survey suggest a financial literacy score for Koreans of 62.2, which is lower than the OECD average of 64.9. Financial literacy is defined by the OECD as a combination of knowledge, attitude, and behavior necessary to make sound financial decisions and ultimately achieve individual financial well-being. Using the same OECD measurement consisting of 18 questions, the Bank of Korea and the Financial Supervisory Service conducted a survey last year on 2,400 Koreans aged between 18 and 79. The respondents scored particularly low on financial behavior, which includes financial planning, and on financial attitude, which is about attitudes toward consumption, saving, and money. There was not much difference in financial literacy between men and women. By age group, those in their 30s score the highest at 64.9, followed by those in their 40s and 50s.
Those older than 60 scored below 60 points because of a lack of knowledge of financial skills and products. Among people in their 20s, financial behavior and attitude are changing. They put more value on consumption than on saving or investing for the future.
Financial literacy also differed by income. People earning more than 50 million Korean won, or around $45,000 a year, scored 65.6, while those earning less than $27,000 a year scored 58. The Financial Supervisory Service and the Bank of Korea said strengthening financial education for the elderly, lower income groups, and young people will be important, and said they'll work with economic research institutions in the country to improve financial literacy overall. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now, as more and more people in Korea live longer and healthier than ever before, there is an ongoing debate taking place in the country on whether the official age that defines the start of a person's twilight years should be raised from the current 65 to 70. Jiyoung reports.
1 in 2 Koreans believe people in their late 60s should not be categorized as senior citizens. A poll conducted by Realmeter found that 55.9% of some 504 respondents were in favor of raising the senior citizen age to 70 from the current threshold of 65, while 41% said the age should stay the same. The survey also noted that there has been a general shift of perception towards older people in the country as life expectancy continues to increase. Korea is also grappling with chronic demographic issues, including low birth rate and a rapidly aging population, which puts increasing stress on the younger generation and on the pension system. Those in favour of raising the age range believe it could help reduce various social burdens, according to the pollster.
Contrary to past conceptions, I think those who are 65 years old are still young and productive. My parents want to continue working, and I think if the senior citizen age increases, there will be various benefits economically, socially, and on a national level.
Meanwhile, others cited concerns that poverty rates among the elderly could worsen if those aged above 65 cannot find jobs and lose their welfare benefits.
I am nearing that age range right now, and I think there will be benefits if we keep the current standard. If there is social consensus for the age limit to be raised, there will have to be opportunities for older people like us to maintain our income and find other work.
In Korea, the official retirement age is currently set at 60, and basic pension payouts are available from the age of 65.
The good news is that raising the age range will allow more people to remain economically active. But the bad news is it doesn't mean pensions received at the right time. It would also affect the younger generation, employment and social welfare for senior citizens, so this is not just a simple matter.
Professor Oh says there should be an in-depth analysis on the impact of an upward shift in the senior citizen age, which should be shared with the public before policy changes are considered. Jiyoung, Arirang News.
Now let's shift gears to another topic. A South Korean novel is proving to be a massive smash hit in Japan. It's the latest chapter that highlights just how Korean literature is growing in demand around the world. Yoon Jung-min reports.
Kim Jiyoung, born in 1982 by South Korean author Cho Nam-ju, has sold more than 50,000 copies in Japan since its release last December. The novel portrays 30-something Kim Jiyoung, who experiences gender discrimination in society through a series of anecdotes. The heroine represents ordinary women in society. Her name, Kim Jiyoung, uses the most common first name for girls born in the late 70s and early 80s in Korea. The issues of unfairness resonate with readers not just in Korea but also in neighboring Japan.
Japanese society also recognized the alienation of women and gender discrimination, just as in Korean society. Such issues have been publicly brought up, and the novel has provided an opportunity to discuss gender issues in Japan too.
According to statistics by the Culture Ministry last year, fewer and fewer people tend to read these days, but some Korean literature has proved successful both at home and abroad. The Vegetarian by Hangang, a story about a woman refusing to eat meat, won the Man Booker International Prize in 2016 after being introduced in the UK. And Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk, which looks at the self-sacrifice of mothers, has sold hundreds of thousands of copies in the US.
Demand for Korean literature is increasing. It is important to nurture professional translators who have a high understanding of cultures of both countries. In addition to linguistic talent, I believe local publishers should work harder to make the most of opportunities based on the Korean wave in literature. Also, our society needs to take more interest in literature to create good content.
Experts say literature has the power to affect readers regardless of nationality or ethnicity, and that access to works from different cultures can improve the overall quality and variety of literature for readers around the world. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Good morning. Dress warmly on your way out as a brief cold snap is here this morning with a cold wave advisory issued in the northeast regions, while a dry weather advisory remains in place for most parts, including here in the capital. In fact, it's been a very dry winter. There's been no rain or snow to be accumulated here in the capital this month, and January we usually get an average of 21 millimeters over the month. But some welcome news. We have a mix of showers and snow in the forecast for Thursday around the country. Then on Sunday, we have another round of nationwide showers and snow in store. And that should help us to relieve the dryness in the air. Meanwhile, temperatures will drop a bit by the end of the week, but will jump right back up for the Lunar New Year holiday weekend. Now back to today's conditions. This morning's cold snap will be short-lived thanks to colder winds, and we should breathe in cleaner air today. And by the afternoon, we'll notice a big jump in the readings under mostly sunny skies. And in Seoul, we'll get up to 5 degrees Celsius. Gyeongju getting up to 11. Busan and Gwangju will make it to 10 degrees this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news we have for you for now on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to us on Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our Jiyoung. So until then, goodbye.